All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Meals podcast. It's a very different episode, obviously, because it's not in the evening. We actually have a special guest, someone who has been a friend to me for many years, who has been a mentor, someone who I've looked up to for a very long time, former head boy of San Diego, valedictorian as well, 2011 valedictorian of St. Thomas University as well, big time lawyer right now in Washington, D.C. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring him on so that we could have the conversation. Mr. David Brown.
All right. Good afternoon, Sir Haswell.
All right, good afternoon. It soon be doctor, right?
No, yeah. I'm right there with you.
All right. So,
Another year.
one more year, then you finish.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, I got 2 more years. All right. So the first thing I want to get into, boss, and I probably never ever said it before, and I really want to get your answer about this. And I never send it to you, I never tell you anything because I really wanted it to be as candid as possible, right? I met you. I met you in 2009, right? I met you
Yes.
in 2009 when I just came to St. Thomas University, August 20th to be exact. I walked straight to the residence halls. You were the first person to greet me along with Mr. McNabb, right? And from the first time my mother saw it, it's like love made in heaven. My mother just fall in love with the boss. Like up until this day, she cannot stop mentioning David Brown, and she say, "Hey, I want you to hang around that guy. I want you to stay in that guy's footsteps." Right? And the following year, because obviously the first year I couldn't do it, so the following year, I applied to be resident assistant. You were the head resident assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Both you and I know I had no business being a resident assistant. Both you and I know that, right? I had no business being a resident assistant. So I just want to ask you right here and then, before we even get into anything else, what was it why you just decided to give this raw Jamaican an opportunity to be in a leadership role that really and truly he had no business being in?
Wow. Maybe it was a mistake, eh? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, but you see, so I've long said that to this day I stand on people's shoulders. People have always given me opportunities, whether it's my doctor, helping out with my sixth form tuition, or my cousin, allowing me to stay by her house and I was taking, doing CSEC, or teachers just helping me with whatever. People have always been there for me. Or that lady who owned Cake World in Spanish Town who gave me a cake so I could give to my mother during Christmas because I reached out and asked. People have always been there. And so I think, you give people chances. Sometimes you give them second chances, sometimes you give them third chances. Also, I just like looking out for people. As a fellow Jamaican, I say, I think we have potential, so give him a chance. Oh, what?
Hey, and this is a picture, boss. I
Yeah,
don't know
man.
if you
This
remember this
this was
picture.
this was at Carib Theater.
This was a
Um,
crime theater, boss.
I
This
don't remember what year, maybe 2010 or something.
probably, I think either 2010 or 2011. This has been a long time ago, right? So that's really and truly just showing, how long I've really known you, and definitely how we have both grown. Because
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I
we,
mean, I'm still short. You still short too, but yeah, and also I think sometimes if you want to see that change in people, you put them in certain positions, and you definitely showed that. Because I thought you were an excellent RA. I mean, we all have hiccups and stuff, but I think you did a really good job.
man, let me tell you. And I must thank you. And I guess I never really done that during our tenure at St. Thomas University, but both you and Mr. McNabb, given me that opportunity to be in a leadership role, clearly changed my trajectory, changed how I looked at life, changed how I view life. Because listen, when I came to St. Thomas University, what was on my mind? I'll just be an average student and get a bunch of girls. That
Let
was
me tell
on
you
that.
something. Boy, I was concerned for you. I remember one what do you call it? The rat skeller, the rat. One night I had to like you were in you're around a group of people and you say some stuff and I was like, oh God, I forgot. Let me pull him aside and talk to him because this fresh from Jamaica and I'm like, yo, you're in a different place right now. Kind of have to
Absolutely.
change that up. But um, you've turned out well so far. Doing a PhD and everything, which is just
Yeah. It even sound weird. It even sound weird. All right. So
yeah,
all right. So let's get into it now. A bit more about you. All right. So now you went to Spanish Town Primary, right? And you went to St. Diego. You came to St. Thomas University. You went back to Jamaica. Then you came back up, right? So I
yeah.
want to know. Tell us about your childhood. How were you raised? Who was
Ah,
instrumental in your childhood?
so oh boy, a lot of key people, but I would definitely have to say, um, the women in my family were very instrumental in getting me to where I am today. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, um, who recently passed. She passed away in November last year. I would say for the first 12 years of my life, like she was the one who like got up and made me breakfast and
Mm-hmm.
gave me lunch money and ensured that there was dinner. I would be there with her. She had a little grocery shop and bar in Corliss Road, Spanish Town. So yeah, I'm from inner city Spanish Town. My grandmother was affectionately called Miss Nita.
Mm-hmm.
We called her Anta. So she definitely played a huge role in my life. Of course, my mother, Sandra James, all along, such a strong woman. Definitely epitomizes the strength of a woman. Shaggy sings that every time I listen to that song, I think about certain people in my life, and my mother and my grandmother. And I was fortunate enough to have both grandmothers on the same road. So my paternal grandmother lived with her until she migrated to Canada in 2001. And then my maternal grandmother, Antes or Mrs. Lopez, as people call her, she was around the avenue as well. And I remember living with her while I was in grade 10. Again, breakfast was always there, lunch, dinner, and if she didn't cook, she'd give me money to buy food. So I would say I grew up in a very supportive environment. Um, I would say somewhat sheltered because it was a rough area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that I was coddled or anything, but there were always people looking out for me and making sure I didn't get involved in the wrong crowd. Um, so it was an interesting childhood, very supportive family. They were big on education. A lot of people in my family didn't get the opportunity to move on and get a degree or sometimes didn't even finish high school,
Mm-hmm.
but they knew the importance of education, and nobody was born with a gold spoon in our mouth. So, it was reinforced to me that I have to take my book, and that's
Absolutely.
where it was. And so, yeah, rough neighborhood, but grew up in a very loving family. Went to church every Sabbath. Didn't skip a beat. Didn't skip a Sabbath. I was very, very active in church as well. The College Road Seventh Day Adventist Church. Um, so yeah, that
So
was my childhood in a nutshell.
So, question, because you mentioned that you were inner city, right? And there's been a lot of things said about in the inner city youth, right? And they have always said that they are a product of their environment, right? Looking at you, clearly it doesn't fit that particular stereotype. So, is there something that was different about you per se, or was it that the family support? What was it different that you didn't take the route of the quote unquote bad?
It was definitely my family, definitely my family. Um, again, and it sounds small, but I appreciate it. Just someone getting up every morning and making your breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes they weren't able to help me with homework, but they made sure that I did it. My grandmother would say, if you're going hang out with your friends, you hang out at the gate. Don't go
Mm-hmm.
too far. You want to ride your bicycle? Don't go too far. Come back by this time. All that stuff. People they were relatively strict, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think because of that, I was able to avoid certain things. Now, some of the people in the community were my friends. and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, questionable backgrounds
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. But again, my family was there to reinforce, like, hey, this is not the path you're gonna take. Go focus on your book. And it got to a point where they didn't have to say that.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, it was just something that I did. They didn't have to say go do your homework or work on a research paper or go study for your exam. Sometimes I wish they did. My mother used to always say, and she still says to this day, oh, David is self-motivated. But
Yeah.
sometimes I wish that they had said, go
Yeah.
sit down and do this. But again, after a while, they didn't have to do that type of thing. It was already ingrained in me, that, you just need to focus and avoid certain things. And to my to what my mother always says, I am self-motivated and
Mm-hmm.
I would look ahead. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain aspirations that I had, and I say, okay, what are the two or three things that I need to do to get to that point? Even going to St. Thomas University, I didn't tell my mother that I was leaving the country until like 2 weeks before, but I had long planned that even though I got into UA, I wasn't going to UA. I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna do certain things. I was gonna teach. I taught at St. Jago for a little bit. Saved up, did the application, reached out to my grandfather. He helped me. He lives in Canada, and did all that stuff, and then made the announcement. So I will look ahead and
Mm-hmm.
put whatever steps I need to in place to attain certain goals.
All right, so then you mentioned San Diego, right? And you did. I think during that time you were doing. Was it GSAT? It was GSAT or common entrance at the time when you
GSAT.
G, GSAT, right? So you did GSAT. You passed for San Diego, right? And let us be honest. San Diego is not one of those sexy schools. It's not a Campion. It's not a Arden. It's not a Immaculate. It's not one of those sexy schools. I mean, in hindsight, we realize that San Diego is a blasted good school. Like it's up there, right? But
Been a good school.
yeah, but hey, here in San Diego at the time, a lot, especially people from Kingston, they're not ringing the bells for San Diego. Anyway, however, the pass for San Diego, I wanted to tell us a little bit about how St. Diego helped develop you into a man, because right now you went ahead and you were the head boy and you were also the valedictorian. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I have to say, San Diego High School was my first choice. Um, it was San Diego, Campion, then Calabar. Um,
Mm,
San Diego was my first choice. I got San Diego. I was excited to go to San Diego because my mother attended San Diego, and
mm,
also I just remember watching San Diego high school students performing in schools challenge quiz. And I was like, yeah, this is
yep,
a really good school. And of course, I was living in Spanish Town. That's the school you want to attend.
absolutely.
Um, I would say I wanted to go to a Kingston school because of all the badness, in the like one of my neighbors, he was a year older than me, and he went to Calabar, and I wanted to go to Calabar because I wanted to take a bus
Yeah,
to town. I wanted that experience, and all the crazy stories you heard about what happened on the buses and what people do in the afternoons after school. Yeah, I
absolutely.
wanted to participate in that, but I was very, very excited and happy to go to San Diego. That school definitely molded me. I remember just 1 week after being at St. Jago, I wrote a letter to the then vice principal, Mrs. Nina Bulgin, um, and I had a meeting with Mrs. McGregor Horton. So I met with both of them because I went to go collect my books and I saw students distributing books and so forth. And I said, I want to work in the book room.
Hmm.
And I wrote a letter to Mrs. McGregor Horton because she was in charge of it. And Mrs. Bulgin was my vice principal. And I asked them formally, can I be
Yeah,
part, I'm new, can I be part of the book room team? And they allowed it. Um, San Diego is
nice.
just, yeah. So I think things started there. And I remember the principal at the time, Mr. Keith Noel, his daughter was a head girl, Tamara Noel, I believe. She was a head girl when I was in grade seven. And I don't remember the name of the head boy. I think he was a cadet. And I just remember them walking into our classroom and everybody stood. And, they're like, good morning, Mr. Head boy. Good morning, head girl. And I was like, my God. And I'll tell you this, I'm admitting this now. I campaigned for the next 6 years to become head boy because I liked seeing that. I was like, wow. And so
Yeah,
week one of being at San Diego, I was like, yeah, I need to to become involved in all these clubs and societies. I did credit union quiz. I was on the debate team. I was a peer counselor. I was in tourism action club. Um, I was one of the leaders for Wortley House during whenever we had sports day. I was involved in every single thing you could imagine at San Diego High School. So
Man.
teachers were
So
amazing to teach. I would say Mr. Noel, I did theater arts with him. So I did JCDC competitions. I don't want to like call names because I don't
yeah.
want teachers to. But besides the academics, that's also where I honed my political interest. Um,
Hmm.
I don't need to get into the party that I supported or support to this day, but
Uh,
well, I guess I'll give it away when I say this.
yeah.
People like Mrs. Charmaine Hunter, and her late husband, who taught me social studies in grade 8. They got me involved in the politics, and Miss Carenza Morrison. She's a member of parliament for Northeast St. Catherine in Jamaica. She was my form teacher in grade 7. She was also my literatures and English teacher in sixth form.
Mhm.
Mrs. Vassell, Mrs. Dallin, Mrs. McCoy, Miss Stone, all these people definitely helped to influence where I am today. So big ups to San Diego.
All right. So we're going to get back to the politics thing. We're going to get back to it in a second. All right. But
All right.
you said something earlier where you said that you got into go to UE. All right. But you knew yourself that you is not what I wanted to do. So you went and you did your St. Thomas University thing. What was it about studying abroad appeal to you?
I think it's, the University of the West Indies is an amazing institution, and it's been recognized globally for all its achievements, all the achievements of its students, and of course, faculty. I just wanted a little more. I wanted the American credentials.
Mhm.
So nothing is wrong with UA. I was extremely excited to get into UA. I remember my mother opening the letter that I got from you, and I saw her crying that night. I will never forget that. So that was big. I don't recall anyone within my immediate family having attended university um, up to that point. So it was huge. Uh, but again, wanted a little more. And so took the time out to, I needed some months to plan how I was going to do it. And I did it. And I will say it was, I don't know if you know Cushing Carter, CMR. Okay. Well, so one of my friends, one of my classmates
Mhm.
from St. Diego at the time, Christian, he lives in Florida now. He went to St. Thomas University to do some football, soccer tryouts. And
Mhm.
so he called me one Saturday and he's like, David, I think this is a school for you. Reach out to Christine or Christina Lopez, who was in
Yeah.
admissions at the time, uh,
Mhm.
and get the ball rolling. And that's how it happened.
So let's transition now. So you're at St. Thomas University now. Listen, at that point in time, I really don't remember the exact dollar, but I think it was probably 140, 141 Jamaican dollar to one US dollar, right? So, and St. Thomas University, private institution. So, a lot of money, right?
Yep.
Um, where did you encounter any particular struggle financially for St. Thomas University, and how did you overcome those struggles?
Man, I tell you, I think the tuition back then, and I started January 2009, the tuition was 22,000 US a year. And I think the initial scholarship amount that I got was like 6,000 or something. And I was like, whoa, how am I going to do this? But I had a cousin, I don't think you had, right, you started St. Thomas August 2009. I started January. My cousin Karen Kennedy, she passed away in April 2009. So she decided to sponsor me along with her mom, who's also my cousin, Sister Precious. She still lives in Miami to this day. And so I remember when I came up, Karen wrote the checks. She picked me up at the airport in January 2009, and she passed away 3 months to the day that she picked me up from the airport. And she told me, her goal was to help me out before she went, because she knew she was sick. Um, and she wrote the check and checks rather, and
Yeah.
paid for me to go to school. And she passed away the day I sat my first exam at St. Thomas University, and I felt it coming. So that's the only bad grade because that day was just rough.
Mhm.
The only bad grade I got a B. In Logic 152, I'll never forget. That
Yeah.
was the course. So she helped me out with the first semester, and then I didn't know how I was going to do the rest of it. Um, Reached out to Richard McNabb. He said, okay, you can apply to become an RA and that stuff. And I did the application. I reached out to a whole lot of people, the president, the dean of admissions. I wrote to strangers. I wrote to Dwayne Wade. I wrote to Oprah Winfrey. I wrote
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade. I wrote to the former manager of the Miami Heat. He's a past student. I can't remember his name right now. I wrote a lot of letters, and Richard McNabb actually sent me, I think early this year or late last year, um, pictures or some screenshots of some of the letters that I wrote to all these people. Um, and it was Mr. Rudy Graff, who was on the board at St. Thomas University at the time, and he's a past student. He and his wife helped me. A lot of people don't know that, but they were the ones who financed the rest of my time at St. Thomas University, so I was able to graduate debt free.
Damn.
So yeah,
Wow.
it was an interesting thing. I can't remember Angela Toth.
Yeah.
So she had asked for people to help campus ambassadors because I was a campus ambassador as well to lead a tour of some alums, class of 1970. Nobody wanted to do it because it was too early on a Saturday morning. I volunteered to do it. And so that's when I met these alums. Mr. Rudy Graff and his wife were there. And he was like, oh, I hear an accent. Where are you from? And I was like, Jamaica. And he's like, my best worker is Jamaican because I think he had a company at the time in New Jersey and stuff. And at the end of the tour, I took them to the cathedral on campus. And then Monsignor was going to pray with them and stuff. And I was supposed to just like walk back to my dorm. I turned back, went right to the front where Mr. Graff was sitting, and I asked him for 2 minutes outside. Um, Spoke to him, told him like, look, my cousin passed away recently. She passed away from cancer, and I don't know what to do. I'm not ready to go back to Jamaica. I need help. And he said, reach out to someone in the library. I think this was the person who was the head of alumni affairs or something. Get my contact information. I wrote him an email on the Sunday. Didn't hear back from him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday. He replied and said everything has been taken care of. So every semester after that, that's how my tuition was paid. And so he and his wife came to my graduation in 2011. They were sitting in the VIP section. I've only seen them twice in my life when I took them on the tour and at graduation. That's it.
So separate and apart from that, when you're climbing up the ladder of greatness, when you're climbing up the elite chamber, right? Do you think about these persons? Do you think about these experiences? Do you think about, man, what would I do? What would I have done should I not gotten this help?
I don't know what I would have done. But to your initial question, yes, I think about what they've done for me all the time. And I reach out every now and again just to, check in and say hi, send an email, reach out during Christmas. And because of what they have done for me and what others have done for me, even the small gestures while I was in high school. Again, my doctor, she paid for my sixth form tuition at one point. I remember I needed the $10,000 because of what they've done for me. Like I do the same thing quietly,
Mm-hmm.
quietly. No big announcement. I remember while I was still at St. Thomas, I went back to San Diego and I spoke with the then principal, Mrs. Watson, and I said, I'm leaving this money. You pick someone who needs it. Should be a young male from Spanish, a male from Spanish Town. You choose. And she did. I didn't follow up with her, didn't do anything like that. And a few years later, somebody reached out to me via Facebook Messenger and said, like, hey, I was the one who got the money from Miss Watson. I just want to let you know I appreciate it. I graduated from UA. I'm ready to start my first job at the Water Resources Authority of Jamaica. Thank you again. And I reach out to teachers. I'm like, and even one of the art teachers there, you know what I'm talking about. September is coming up. Every year I say, give me the names of two students who need help. They don't need to talk to me. I don't need to talk to them. I'm willing to help. I do it with head students, prefix, whatever, all the time.
So let me ask a question because I believe that is really important. Why is it that you don't feel the need to get credit publicly? Because you see a lot of persons out there when they do something, it must be noted, it must be publicized, it must be out there, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Why is it that you feel like, I'll just do it privately? Why is that?
It's just not my style. And those who helped me never publicized it. So I don't need to do it. If I don't tell people that Rudy Graff and his wife helped me out, they wouldn't know. Like they are not saying anything. My doctors never told anyone. Like teachers who have helped me, even getting to law school, I've paid, a prominent Jamaican assisted with paying my seat deposit, and the seat deposit was like 3,000 US at the time. So even just the seat deposit is a lot.
Hmm.
They never publicized it. So I don't feel the need to do that either. If you're gonna help somebody, you help them out and
And
leave it
just
there.
leave it at that. Absolutely. All right. So St. Thomas University, 2011. Was it 2011? Yeah, you
Yep.
graduated, right?
Mhm.
Graduated, you were the valedictorian. You decided to take a route for whatever reason. You can tell us why. You decided to take a route that 99% of Jamaicans would never take, myself included, never, because you decided, hey man, I'm going to leave the United States, I'm going to go back to Jamaica, and I'll figure it out after there, right?
Mhm.
This was, and I'm sure probably persons in your circle, in your media, no, David, no, 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 don't do it. What was your whole thought process behind that? Were you scared? Were you confident that, hey, I'll be back here at some point?
So, I'll say this. So I thought about going to law school, but I didn't take the LSAT while I was at St. Thomas, and it was too late to to go to law school at that point. I did, however, get into Fordham University, and the plan was to go to Fordham, but it was too expensive. And so I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go back to Jamaica for the summer and figure things out. Turned into 3 years. So the plan was never to go back for a while. It was just it wasn't to go back for that long, but just to figure out the whole Fordham University thing. When will I take the LSAT? Do I want to take the LSAT? Um, but I will say when I went back to Jamaica, I was afraid of taking the LSAT. That's the truth. I
You
was
were
afraid.
afraid of taking
I was
it?
afraid of taking the LSAT. It to me it just seemed like a tough exam. Um, and so I ended up staying for a bit. I taught at Heart Trust just for like 2 months, and then CVM reached out to me, and I went to CVM, and then folks at the then Ministry of Transport Works and Housing, they reached out, and I went there. But 2 years after being back, one Sunday I was just at home, and I was like, "What am I afraid of? Just go do it." And so that was the Sunday, and then by Thursday of that week, I was enrolled in LSAT classes at Versan on Constant Spring Road. So that was September. I can't remember what year. 2013, September 2013. Took the LSAT December 2013 and applied to law schools January 2014.
So you mentioned that CVM reached out. How was your time at CVM? Was that something that you loved? Was that something that if quote unquote law school never really work out, this would be the avenue that I would have been in?
So to be clear, if I weren't a lawyer, I'd be a teacher. Teaching is my first passion. I love teaching. CVM was amazing. I grew up watching Curling Brown on TV. Um, I would hear certain words and write them down and use my thesaurus and all this. I admired Curling Brown, and to become her colleague was just an amazing thing. Um, and then to work under folks like Irvin Forbes and Garfield Burford, who was my boss. Garfield hired me. He was my
Hmm.
boss at the time. Amazing intellectual individual. He now lives and works in Antigua, but like I was blessed to work with the likes of Garfield Burford.
Hmm.
Um, I loved it. I mean, the thrill, you would go into work. I usually did the 2 o'clock shift, 2 p.m., going to work, not really sure what's going to happen. And, boom, a major news story, and you're sent out there to cover it. Early on, Garfield said, you like the politics, we're going to have you cover Parliament. So I was part of that team with Andrew Cannon, and Dwayne Burbick. So the three of us, we formed a little investigative team, or I don't remember what Garfield called it. So like I
Mm-hmm.
was covering Parliament, if they wanted a response from the Prime Minister at the time, Portia Simpson Miller, and Andrew Holness, I think, because I started in November 2011 at CVM. Andrew was Prime Minister for a short time. Yeah, they would send me out to get these clips. I loved it. I could come up with my own stories. Garfield also, he sat me down one day and he's like, where do you see yourself a year
Mm-hmm.
from now, 5 years from now? And I said, I want to produce. And he's like, all right, you're going to produce the weekend news package
Wow.
at 21, 22. So
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't necessarily, I wasn't the anchor. I wasn't reading the news,
Mm-hmm.
but I was a journalist and I would report, and I was also producing the news bulletin, and also produced and read on Hot 102 because that was right upstairs. But Steven was amazing, and it culminated in being awarded by the Press Association of Jamaica's Young Journalist of the Year 2012. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I had an amazing time there.
All right. So, um, no, you did the LSAT. You got your it's over with. You got your grade. You got your score. Right. Um, why did you and you went to George
George
Georgetown?
Washington University.
George Washington University. Why is it that you decided to go to George Washington University?
Yeah, good question. So I really wanted to go to University of Miami Law School.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a Miami Hurricane. Plus, I'd lived in Miami before, so yeah, UM was the place. But this is Washington D.C. Like you can't. I mean, this is where you want to learn law. This is where you want to practice law.
Yeah.
Um, at Washington D.C. So, and it's GW is a national law school, highly ranked, and I got a scholarship to attend. So that that was a big pull.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I got into I think 8 law schools, and chose GW, and started in August 2014.
All right. So let me ask a question because you said if you weren't a lawyer, you would have been a teacher. Because
Why did I become a
obviously,
lawyer?
basically, because from I met you, there has been a passion just for teaching, right? Not necessarily teaching education wise, but just teaching somebody who needs to be taught, right? So why didn't you become a teacher? Why did you go the lawyer route?
Uh, so I will say there's a lot of pressure. There's people constantly saying, "Oh, you should be a lawyer." This. You're a smart guy. Like go do it. Um, so I did, and I also thought to myself, um, with a law degree, especially with an American law degree, because here we do the Juris Doctor. I know back home we still do the LLB.
Mm-hmm.
For me, with a law degree, you can pretty much do anything, with the exception of practicing medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You can go into business, you can go into academia, of course, you can practice, you can be a developer, whatever you want to do. Like a JD, a Juris Doctor, opens up so many doors for you. And of course, like if I want to teach, I could go teach at a law school, teach at a university with a Juris Doctor. Um, in fact, while I was in law school in my third year, I taught for a whole year. I taught first year law students legal research and writing. So that was fun. But yeah, it's people telling me you need to go to law school. So I did. I don't regret it. Um, it's a really good degree, and again, as I've said, it has opened so many doors for me.
So now you moved from being afraid to do the LSAT to do the LSAT, got scholarships, got accepted to 8 schools. You decided to go to George Washington, but yet still it didn't end there for you. You're now currently pursuing an EDD. Why?
Again, so it goes back to education, right? Because this is the
Uh-huh.
doctorate in education. The focus for this doctorate though is on leadership. So the program I'm in is not just for educators. It's not principal. I mean, there are business executives, there are military people, there are other lawyers who are in it. There are people who already have doctorates who want to go back to school and get another doctorate. Um, um, athletics coach, directors and stuff. I've always wanted a doctorate, to be candid. I've always
Wow.
wanted to be Dr. Brown. Um, I'm being unfiltered here.
Yeah.
But also it's a useful tool for
Mhm.
whatever I'll be doing in the next 5, 10 years, because it's focusing on leadership. So if I'm a law firm partner or managing partner at the firm or whatever, or head up a practice group, or if I'm in some other industry at the time, like what I'm learning now would be helpful going forward. So it's an expensive degree because I took out more loans to do it, but I think it's a useful degree, and it's just something that I've always wanted to do. Um, and it brings me back a little bit to education, and it's at an amazing university. I will say I've never said this publicly. So I'm at Vanderbilt University for the doctorate. Vanderbilt waitlisted me for law school. Two schools waitlisted me of the 10 out of the 10.
Okay.
Vanderbilt waitlisted me, and I was like, I'm coming back, and I did.
Never change, huh? Never change.
Call me petty.
Well, sometimes we have to be a little bit petty. All
Yeah.
right, so I want to, so, there are some persons, who are watching this, listen, man, this guy from inner city Spanish town, able to leave inner city Spanish town and know, again, I call it at, at the top, right? At the top, right? And I'm sure within yourself, you feel like there's much more levels to go, right? But for me, as I said, as somebody who I've met in 2009, now 13 years later, to see everything that you've accomplished, and I know you're probably tired to hear this. A lot of person might tell you they're not surprised because this is really and truly what they have expected from you. But I just wanted to tell I would say three things, right? If you have more, we'll welcome them. What are those three things that you would pass on to a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old who is in the Spanish Town community, who is looking to be another David Brown, or who is looking to be even eclipse a David Brown, but they just want that encouragement? What are three things that you would tell them to go ahead and try and do?
Wow. All right. So I think firstly, I would say learn to motivate yourself. And it goes back to what we were discussing earlier, where I got to a certain point where it's like nobody in my mom, my grandmothers, um, my aunts, no one had to tell me what to do, when to do it. I had certain aspirations, and I knew I had to do whatever I needed to attain those.
Mhm.
And so I would say don't wait on a role model. Find something that you're excited about and do whatever you need to legally to pursue um, those things. So motivate yourself, get going. I think the second thing that I would say is put some energy into yourself, prioritize yourself, love yourself first before you put energy into anybody else or anything else. Focus on yourself, because a lot of times, you know, we get involved with friends and company and all that stuff, and even focusing too much on relatives and things going on in your community or whatever. Focus on yourself first, prioritize yourself, and if you have any energy left back to give to others, then you can extend that. And thirdly, and it's pretty simple, I would say just start. um, Growing up, there were times when I was afraid to do certain things. um, as I said with the LSAT, I was afraid to do it. I was very hesitant to do it. Similarly with the doctoral program, I put that off for a little bit. And then one day I was at work and I just said, I'm going to look at schools and I'm going to apply. Just get started. If you want to go to nursing school, it's an amazing story in the Star. Um, this morning, and I shared it with my mom too. There's a young lady from Tall's Pen. She just got her master's degree, and she's saying the next step. She works at the Spanish hospital. The next step is to do her PhD. And I'm like, yeah, that's the type of energy I like. Just get started. Just do it. With St. Thomas University, I didn't know about the school until Kushane called me and said, like, hey, reach out to Miss Lopez. And I did it 2 days later. just get started. So I think those are the 3 pointers I would share.
All right. Definitely. Thank you for that. I said that I was going to touch back on the politics, right? Because anyone who knows you, anyone who's on your social media, know that you are from the prosperity family, right? You're a prosperity kind of guy, right? However, why is it that you think that you've never go down that road? Even when, I know you said when you went back to Jamaica, you were able to, cover, parliament and stuff. But why you never get too indulged in the politics?
Yeah, good question. So, when I was at CVM, I couldn't do that. I mean, you can't be a journalist and involved in politics. Yes, when I was in high school, I used to campaign. I campaigned for Leslie Campbell. I think at the time it was East Central St. Catherine. KD Knight had just retired, and so Natalie Nita and Leslie Campbell were vying to get the seat. And while I was in sixth form, I used to go up to Bog Walk and stay over at Miss Hunter's place and bug out flour and all that stuff and move around in Bog Walk, Sligoville, above rocks, campaigning. I enjoyed it. I remember Bruce Golding was just he was running. This was 2007. He won in 2007. I was very active, very active. Roddy Spencer was my member of parliament as well because by now I moved to Longville Park in Clarendon to live with my mother in 2003, I believe, or yeah, 2003 I think. So Roddy Spencer was my member of parliament at the time. Campaigned with him, spoke at events. I was all over it. Then I went off to college. Um, when I came back, I was at CVM. You don't want people to say you're biased and stuff in your
Mm-hmm.
reporting. Unfortunately for me, I was never accused of that. Portia Simpson Miller was prime minister at the time, had a great relationship with her. I was never biased in my reporting. No one ever complained about that. And similarly, I then moved from CVM to the Ministry of Transport Works and Housing, working very closely with Minister Omar Davies, Dr. Omar Davies, and Dr. Maurice Guy. Um, they were PNP ministers, and Richard Azan was the state minister.
Mm-hmm.
PNP ministers, but I'm a JLP guy, but I did my job objectively. I was a PR person. And I never no one accused me of. And then also there were some who thought that because I'm coming from media, I would have leaked stories to CVM or other media houses because of my connections with them. Um, Not at all. So I think that's why I didn't venture into that. Um, so yeah, and then I came back here. So I couldn't be involved in politics. I will say that even while I was in law school, I tried to go back to vote and stuff, but finances and things. So yeah, I live here now, so I can't get involved in politics. But I don't mind working from the background.
So here is there's a someone by the name of Mika is watching, and she's saying that she has a niece that is single. So
I see. Let's talk offline, Nika. Nika.
uh so want to ask you a political question. I'm not the biggest political guy. During our time at St. Thomas University, you would talk about politics, and it doesn't Jamaican politics, US politics, it doesn't matter what politics, you were just into it, right? So you are in the United States now, and you're looking at your country, you're looking at Jamaica, right? And we see what's going on out there. What's one thing or two things that you believe can be done to help galvanize the country?
Which country? The Jamaica?
The Jamaica, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think I have the same. If we're looking at the U.S. politics, I think I have the same advice, and I think that would be we need to compromise more. We don't need it. Doesn't it shouldn't be either A or Z, or I'm for or against. I'm all about being practical. Let's come together, government and opposition. and come up with solutions here. You don't have to be super divided on everything. Uh, I think specifically for Jamaica, we need more innovation. We
Mhm.
need our political leaders to be more creative with tackling certain social ills that are affecting the country. It can't be the same thing over and over and over again. I also would love to see the parliament being more active in terms of legislation. I don't see private members' motions. I don't hear the backbenchers coming up with ideas. Um, there's not a whole lot going on. Sometimes I watch Parliament, and I watch Parliament every week, and they meet
Mhm.
for an hour and they're gone. I would love to see a much more active, robust parliament debating the issues and coming up with solutions. I completely understand that opposition has to oppose for political reasons. You have to do that. But I would love for us to come together, especially as it relates to crime, um,
Mhm.
to come up with meaningful solutions, not just band-aid policies. So I think that's what I'd love to see. I will say, Jamaica, we- we're we're a little less tribal nowadays, and I like that because even growing up in my community in the Corliss Road, Marshburn Road area, um, you know, people would say, well, that side is the PNP side, that side is the JLP side, and you can't cross this line, which is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I'm seeing less and less of that.
Mhm.
So, I'd love to see us improve upon that, but I need our politicians to become more innovative. And I'll say one more thing too. I think I saw a report a couple weeks ago that said the Ministry of Education cannot locate, I think, thousands of students um, who have stopped attending school because of COVID-19. Um, you know, schools were operating remotely, I think, for the most part during that period. I'm concerned about those kids because if we lose them now, they will become the next set of people that we're going to be concerned with five,
Absolutely.
10 years from now. We really have
Absolutely.
to put the resources in place to go after these kids and bring them back to school. Because if we think things are bad now, if you think the crime is out of control now, give it 5 more years and you'll see.
All right. So I know you probably have to run soon. So, I have another question to ask you, right? So, you've mentioned that there have been some crucial persons in your life, right? So I'm going to call some names, whether by title or by their real names, right? And I just want you to give one adjective, or you can even give a sentence that really and truly describes that person, their meaning to you. All right? So
Okay.
obviously, the first one I'm going to start with is your mother, of course.
Okay. I would say she's selfless.
Mhm.
And she lives for her children. She does everything. She lives for her kids. She does everything for us. Always in our corner, and definitely puts us before herself. So I would describe her as selfless.
All right. And we'll go from there to your sister.
Shante is she's the life of the party. Um, some people would say we're complete opposites. She's a go getter and she's very confident.
All right. And then I want to go to your paternal grandma.
Anta. Um, I think I described my mom like this earlier, and I also describe her likewise. Definitely epitomizes the strength of a woman. God fearing, she recently passed, but she was a
Mhm.
God fearing individual and very patient, and a family woman.
And how about your maternal grandma?
Antes, I would say she's a fighter, and very loyal, and there for her family.
I don't know. I know at St. Thomas University, this guy was probably one of your best friends. As in Jamaica, we say bench and batty, right? Like where you see one, you see the other.
Right.
But Jean Bernard.
I would describe John Bernard as jovial. I don't think a lot of people see it, but jovial, persistent and focused.
And Richard McNabb.
Man, um, I would describe him as reliable, loyal. Um, he can be your cheer squad. I remember just at graduation, he's the one who recorded my speech, and that's why it's on YouTube. And he when I graduated law school in DC, he flew up to DC as well, to record that. Um,
Hmm.
so definitely loyal and somebody who's in your corner.
Boss, I'll tell you this about Mr. Mann. Even when you left St. Thomas University, it was like you were still there. Every day your name was mentioned. David would do it like this. Oh, David. Oh, it was always. I mean, and it never came off obnoxious. It never came off annoying because we actually knew that he's telling the truth. This is exactly what David would do. Or this is exactly how David will handle it. All right. So some persons sent in some questions that they wanted you to answer, and the first one is, how was the transition from Jamaica's legal system to the American system, and was it hard leaving your job at CBN?
Um, It was difficult leaving my job at CVM because I really, really enjoyed it and I saw the growth within such a short period of time. Just moving from reporter to producer. Um, yeah, it was difficult, but we gotta do difficult things for growth.
Mm-hmm.
The transition from the Jamaican legal system. Well, so I was never a lawyer in Jamaica, so um, it wasn't much of a transition. I only learned American law. I practiced within the American legal system. And I know there are times people from Jamaica will ask me questions. I'm like, one, even if you were here, I can't give you legal advice.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how it works. I because of malpractice reasons, you don't just tell people, you don't give people legal advice, just like that, unless there's an engagement letter between you and that individual. So, I always respectfully tell folks like I'm not a Jamaican lawyer, so
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you, I can't advise you. So yeah, the transition, there was no transition because I only practice American law.
All right. And was it difficult migrating to a city which is not a popular destination for Jamaicans?
Um, yeah, Washington D.C. You won't find a lot of Americans. I mean, a lot of Jamaicans here, but there are Jamaicans everywhere. And so like I quickly had formed a little clique in law school. Three of us, three Jamaicans, we graduated at the same time. We're still all three of us live in DC still, and we're close to this day. So yeah, it was a little difficult. I didn't know what to expect. I thought like even flying to DC for the first time, I thought I had to wear a suit. I didn't, but I was very nervous coming here because this is Washington DC. Um, so yeah, and I would say too, I do have an issue with the Jamaican restaurants here because they're not as good as the ones in South Florida. Um,
Absolutely not.
they're not good.
Absolutely not. So another question: will you sponsor the St. Jago Art Department?
That question is coming from Alwyn. So I've definitely done stuff with the history department because I was a history buff and I taught history there shortly for a short period of time. Um, I think I mean we can Alwyn and I we can talk about the needs of the art department, the arts department. But again, just to go back to something I said before, I do try to work with a couple of teachers there to, sponsor students quietly. Sometimes they don't even know, where it's coming from. But yeah, that's something that I've done for years, and I spoke with Alwyn maybe a month ago about continuing that. I told him to identify a couple of students. So yeah, but we can definitely talk about that offline.
All right. How important is friendships, relationships, and networking in your field of study?
Oh, in law,
Yeah.
necessary. DC is a place where you need to know people, and knowing people will help you to advance as well. You cannot come to DC and be a shy individual. You won't move up. You won't. So I mean, they taught us that in law school. Like whenever you find an opportunity, you go to these networking events. You talk to lawyers. You talk to other people. I still network to this day, especially as it relates to politics. Like can reach out to a few politicians here in DC, simply because I reached out to them also when I didn't need anything from them. It's just like, oh, for example, Ambassador Tapia, the former U.S. ambassador to Jamaica. When former President Trump nominated him, I just reached out and said, like, hey, I'm a Jamaican living in DC. Whenever you come to DC, let me know. We can, grab breakfast and talk about some of the issues affecting Jamaica and, some recommendations that I have. Boom. So that's how we roll here.
I realize that. Uh, you seem like a pretty confident guy. How do you handle disappointments?
Wow. How do I handle disappointment? I guess I tell people all the time, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be sad. If you want to lay on your couch and cry for a little bit, do that. But it's important to, after a little while, get back up. So I've received rejection letters from law firms, whatever, like when I was a law student applying to firms. I've had other failures in my life, but you just get back up. Like life goes on. That's it. I know it sounds. I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's just how I see it. I don't dwell too much on the bad things that have happened, because it's important to use some of that time that you'd use to sulk and be disappointed to then figure out how to fix that disappointment.
All right. What what do you do for fun? Study. I'm joking.
People think.
I'm joking.
So I like to travel. I like to experience other people's cultures. I used to like eat different types of foods. I try not to do that anymore. But yeah, I like traveling. A lot of people don't know that I enjoy plane spotting. I'm big on aviation.
Hmm.
So I will go to Reagan Airport and sit and watch planes land and take off and identify like, oh, this is Delta, this is American Airlines, all that stuff.
Mm.
Um, I really like aviation. Actually, I've been studying on my own aviation law because it's something I like. Um, I enjoy music as well. If I once I have some liquid courage, I'm at the club or a lounge or something, I would dance. But yeah, so that's pretty much it.
All right.
Politics
Uh, hmm?
and politics.
Mm, absolutely. Three things about you that people do not know.
I guess the plane spotting is one of them.
Hmm.
Um, Another one is, whew, my mother is gonna hear this. I curse a lot. I curse a lot. Um, and I can cook.
I see. Yeah, you learn how to cook.
I've learned how to cook. I can
Because
cook.
before boy, it
It,
wasn't
wa-
happening.
it wasn't. It wasn't.
Hey, so I'll just ask you this is the final question before we close out. If seeing where you are now, and they always say hindsight is 2020, but seeing where you are in life now, right? If there is any advice you could have give your younger self, like say for example, at St. Diego, at St. Thomas University first year, when things were looking a little, I don't really know. What advice would you give your younger self?
Wow. Um, have a little more fun. Take it.
Yeah,
It ain't that. It's not that serious. You're gonna get it done, David.
yeah,
Relax.
yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll call it because that is I've never seen anything more accurate. When I say have a look, if you guys met this guy at St. Thomas University, lovely guy, but man, when I
Yeah.
say by the book, he
Rules.
is he is by the book, man. But David, listen, I reach out to you as I said before for the Males podcast is men achieving leadership, excellence, and success, right? And I believe you have really and truly displayed that. And I personally wanted you to be the first guest on the show because, as I said before, you have been a mentor to me, whether I'm hired and take the mentorship. You know, you have been a mentor to me. You have been somebody who I've looked up to for years. You know, even if you have been a gold standard, even if I can exceed the standard or get close to the standard, you have been a gold standard for me, and I appreciate you. I think I can call you a friend. I can call you a brother, and I truly appreciate everything that you have done, everything you have accomplished. Remember, when I bought my house, you my call, yo, boss man, what you think about this, what you think about that? Because I believe that I can trust you, and the faith that you had in me in 2009, it never goes unnoticed. And I just want to thank you. I appreciate you, boss, and I know you're going to do your little cookings and your chefings and your eating for the July 4th. But I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk.
Wow. Kamar, thank you for the sentiments. I appreciate it. I'm proud of you. Just keep your head focused, remain level headed, and do your thing. And thank you again for this opportunity to share my story.
Absolutely, boss. We'll talk.
All right, bless up.